Welcome to a special transmissions early review of Transformers War for Cybertron Earthrise, the latest chapter in the Netflix series. So we got a chance to see the whole show early and we've got a review. So the show comes out in just a couple of days. So this will be completely spoiler free. No, no advance information. So we won't spoil anything for you, but we will give our opinions. So as always, I'm your host, Charles, aka Big C. I'm joined by the excellent transmissions team, Jeremy, aka Yakko.
Hello.
And Daryl, the Cybertronian beast.
How are you now? Let's talk Transformers.
Fine. And we have a special guest. We have our good friend Ant. And you might know him from TFU.info, the awesome Transformers website and resource, and the great Transformers informational podcast, Transformers University. Welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Doing okay. Ready to watch some Earth's rising.
Yeah, so we did this for Siege, and I think the consensus was we all pretty much enjoyed Siege. Actually, Ant, you weren't here for that review, so maybe give us your 30-second thoughts on Siege before we get into Earthrise.
Okay, so my 30-second thoughts on Siege, having seen it now 3 times, I was lukewarm on it to begin with. I don't think multiple watchings helped that along. The story is really tight. The voice acting is kind of slow. And for me, it's a little bit too much DC Cinematic Universe, as you know, it's Transformers as DC Cinematic Universe, where would probably prefer to be a little bit more Transformers as Marvel Cinematic Universe.
A little brighter.
Yeah, a little less dark for dark's sake.
Okay.
There's got to be sunshine during the day in an apocalypse, right?
Well, I mean, I think with Earthrise, things don't get any brighter here.
No, but I think the storytelling gets a little bit easier for the viewer. I don't think it's just like light and dark as far as being dark. I think it's also tone. I think the tone of Siege was a little heavy for what it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's talk about Earthrise. We just got a chance to watch it, and I enjoyed Siege. I thought the storytelling was. What I praised about Siege was that for 6 episodes they packed a lot of story into those 6 episodes, a lot of character development, and I think that continued with Earthrise. I think Earthrise was also managed to get a lot of things into a 6-episode arc, and in particular a lot of Transformers Easter eggs, which I really appreciated. Being a longtime fan, seeing a lot of references. And seeing all those references that were not just thrown in there willy-nilly, but actually made sense and added to the story. So I thought that was really well done, and I was happy to see a lot of the character arcs that I enjoyed from Siege getting continued, like in particular Alita 1's arc, and having her continue her fight on Cybertron while also getting into what was happening with Optimus Prime and the arc out in space. So I was happy, and I'm excited for Kingdom when that eventually comes, hopefully in 6 months or less. So maybe Daryl, why don't you give us your thoughts on Earthrise?
Well, I also liked Earthrise. I liked it more than Siege, probably because the pace picked up a little bit. Mm-hmm. I found Siege to be a little slow going, but when Earthrise hit, it was quicker. My complaint about Siege, about it having the voice acting being fairly slow and kind of monotone, didn't really change from Earthrise. Earthrise still kind of kept with the same monotone voices, and the pace of those the speech was still fairly slow. On the back end of that, though, some of the newer characters that they introduce don't have that. So they changed that. So where they were able to change it, they did. And I do appreciate that. Now, there is some stuff that I really liked about the show, and something that maybe we'll talk about later. But if you've watched the trailers of the show, there's almost an entire episode dedicated to a character that's not in any of the trailers.
Yeah.
And it's
that was great.
Phenomenal. What an amazing episode. And man, I loved that episode. That episode is right in my wheelhouse. If you've been listening to Transmissions for a while, you know what my wheelhouse is.
Yeah. If you know what Daryl likes in the comic book, it was that episode.
I've got one setting, and this was it. Yeah. But no, this was, I really enjoyed Earthrise for that uptick in pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Jeremy, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I have to agree with everyone on the voice acting. There are a few voice actor or characters that the voice acting really shine. Like Wheeljack, since episode 1 of Siege, has been great. Starscream is great. It was mainly, I think, Megatron and Optimus that I felt really dragged. And I like the voices they do. It's just the pacing is really slow. Except when Optimus got really excited, like he's like in a fight or something. And then like, I like the sound of the regular Optimus voice that he's doing. The excited in action Optimus voice, it just sounded completely different to me. I don't know what was going on, but it was noticeably different. And it was like he was doing a different voice. It just, I don't know, it didn't work with me. I will say there was, I know the episode Daryl's talking about, but there was another character in another episode that was also not in the trailers, and I thought was really good. If you see the characters that show up in the trailer and you're like, oh, they're going to go in this direction, and they don't. But in that same episode, there's another character that's just, I wasn't expecting them to do the development that they did with this one character. And when we get to our spoiler review, I don't know when we're going to do the spoiler reviews, but we'll go into more detail about that. But I thought that was great.
In my defense, the episode you're talking about was much slower.
It was much slower. Yes. But I thought there was two major characters that were not in the trailers. And there was the one you were talking about, the one I was talking about. So, I think, going from Siege, there's a group of characters on Cybertron and a group of characters out in space. I thought both storylines were compelling, but the flipping back and forth between the sets of characters sometimes was a bit jarring. Sometimes I was like really getting into the storyline they were telling me, and then they would flip to the other one. I'm like, oh, but I want to continue with, what I'm watching. So I don't know. That's always a hard thing to when you're doing a show, it's a hard thing to do and to balance. But I thought both storylines were compelling. There was something else I was going to mention about, I like what they did. So were the mercenaries in the trailers? I don't know.
They're in the preview trailer. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes.
I like what they did with the mercenaries. I thought that was,
Daryl already spoiled the mercenaries in Siege.
Well, yeah, but we saw them a bit in Siege, and I really like what they did here. And they were, they were kind of exactly what you would expect them to be, but with a little twist. And I don't know, I thought they were fun. And it's always nice to see a third faction that's actually seems like a viable faction. And
there are no factions here.
Yeah,
but we have a symbol for one.
Right. And then visually, I think it still looked great. This is so much better than the Prime Wars trilogy. I mean, I thought it looks fantastic. I watched it on an Oculus Go headset, so I was seeing like a virtual huge Netflix screen, and I thought that it looked great there. When I've seen it on my actual TV, it looked great there. And then the music was continued to be good. I pointed out in Siege, I really enjoyed the soundtrack, and this just, continued. I thought an excellent score. So I think that's all I can say without spoilers.
All right, Ant, we'll come back to you full circle. What did you think of Earthrise?
All right. So comparatively, I like Earthrise a lot more than I liked Siege. I think I agree with Daryl and Jeremy. The voice acting still is slow. It's still not very good in a lot of places. Certain people really do shine. I'm one that likes Megatron. I'm a big fan of Frank Tadaro as Starscream. He has some other roles in this series that are pretty good. I am not a fan of Jake Fauci as Optimus Prime, especially when he emotes. And I think that is, I think that's, that goes to, I don't know if he can act. And I don't say that in a mean way. I say that as he's kind of a voiceover guy and a guy that does trailers, then that doesn't always necessarily translate to being a voice actor. So when you hit those scenes where he's supposed to act as Optimus Prime, they really stand out as, I don't want to say bad. I'm inclined to say bad, but I think they're out of place because they don't feel natural.
It's like you can't do the Optimus voice other than that monotone,
other than doing a Peter Cullen impression. And I think that's the issue. It's not that he's not really, creating the character as much as he's trying to impersonate Peter Cullen's, movie version of the character. Aside from that, I like how the storytelling in this series is a little bit more episodic than Siege. Like Siege felt like a 6-part story. And you just you stopped somewhere where there was like some sort of natural breaking point, and you pick back up in the next episode. This feels like episode 1 is, the episode, I won't spoil it, but it's the episode that X happens, and episode 2 is the episode that the next thing happens, and episode 3 is where Daryl's character shows up. Like there's there are specific things you can tie to each episode and makes each episode memorable, which you didn't have in Siege, and that's a big plus for the show. There's some deep cuts references, as Charles mentioned that I really like. And then there's some surprises that are not really surprises if you're a Transformers fan or a long-term fan. I think some of the fan service and some of the the deep lore that's in this show is almost like I don't know, Transformers lore for dummies. Like, it's like, if you didn't follow the series, beyond say the, maybe the original series and the 86 movie and maybe like Bumblebee or some of the Bay films, like you're probably not that well versed in some of the lore. And so like some of the things that are meant to be surprises, like one of the things that Megatron is planning early on, that has a special name. Like if you're a Transformers fan, you probably know exactly what it is. Even when they have the big reveal of it, you knew it was coming. And I think so, like, they've missed the mark for folks like us, but I think for the general public fan, I think those are going to score real big and be really impressive. And I think it's almost like that level of fandom, that more casual fan, is actually going to enjoy the series even more than we did.
And with regards to that special project, right? Yes, they've used the same name, right? But with regards to them, they could have done something or changed the look of this special project, right? But when it does come to fruition and is revealed to be, almost, I would say, actually identical to what we as the older fans, picture, in your mind, you're like, yeah, they did it right.
Yeah, it's still
Right.
pretty cool. Yeah.
It's not like it's not a letdown. Like, it's just, they didn't change anything. It's just like, yeah, good work.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with that, like I felt that with the end of one of the episodes. And I don't want to give too much away, but you do see the person in the trailer when he leaves and gives Megatron that thing, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So like, there's a lot of fan service in the show, but I do like that they're drawing. They drew from I didn't keep count, but there was like, oh, that's kind of like that thing in this one. Like there were things that I was like, that's kind of like Beast Machines, and that's kind of like IDW, and that's kind of like there were a couple of times where I was like, this show is pulling from a lot of things. It's very in some ways there's a little bit more of a Cyberverse flavor to this season, which it might be more of Gavin Hignight's contributions as a writer. I also think Tim Sheridan coming on the writing staff is a huge improvement to the writing. In fact, he's also writing for the Netflix Masters of the Universe series, and now I'm more excited about that, having seen Earthrise.
Right. Yeah.
One thing that we did discuss in our interview with FJ DeSanto, that I don't know when this is dropping, but it'll
be coming out.
That'll be out the Friday after Earthrise comes out. So
look forward to that.
We did it in the past. It comes in the future.
Is that we actually did discuss the humor in this series. Is the humor in Earthrise is taken up quite a notch to from where it was in Siege. And as you mentioned, the new writer Tim on the show is FJ did mention is a lot of the humor was from him. So look for a lot more jokes in this series.
And that is a step more from the DC to the Marvel, movie, feel.
And it's also the nature of the jokes. I think, watching Siege, like the one of the things that bothered me was humor. Like, it wasn't that it was humorless, but the jokes were always one character basically making fun of another character. So like there was always at the expense of another character. A lot of the jokes now, and it's not all of them, but it's a lot of them, come at the expense of the situation, which
right.
Makes for a lighter tone. Good example is one that's in the trailer is that the Autobots that are still on Cybertron, Jetfire's among them, and Red Alert saying, "I love that we have an Autobot who can fly." Like that's taking advantage of the situation and not the person on the other end, and it makes the joke funnier in some ways.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we can talk about just in general our high points and low points of the show. I guess it's hard to do that without getting into details, but
are we allowed to reference the trailers?
Sure.
Yeah, I would say trailers are fair game.
Yeah. So I mean, just in general for me, I think the high points of the show for me were the characterization and the storytelling. I think like you guys have said, I think just all the characters that we get to focus on, the new characters that get brought in and fleshed out, and I think it does a good job of taking all the characters in interesting directions. Particularly, you get to see Megatron. Like, I think a lot of times there's hints of how bad Megatron gets in terms of, why is he, what did he do to become like this, this tyrant, and how did he go from kind of a hero, kind of a revolutionary to just a complete villain, tyrant, despot. And I think this show does a good job of showing that journey, making it look realistic. I mean, in terms of, you can see how he got from point A to point B. It's not a stretch for why he does the things that he does, but you also see how his cruelty and maybe insanity get amplified as the series progresses, and why that happens. I thought that was that was really well done. In terms of low points for me, I mean, you guys have mentioned the voice acting, which for the most part I'm fine with. I didn't have any huge problems with the voice acting. I did feel like towards the end of the series, there were just a couple of lines that the dialogue felt a little bit clunky for me. Like it just, some of the lines that were delivered, I felt like they could have tightened them up just a little bit. Of course, this is something that's out of the control of the showrunners, is that just due to budget concerns, there's not a lot of transforming, and I want more transforming in a Transformers show. So just in general, I think I would ask Hasbro and Netflix to give these guys more money so they can that we can get all the character models and get alternate mode models for every character. I think that's pretty much it for me. I mean, I think I definitely think Earthrise was an improvement over Siege, but I also liked Siege too. So I think they're continuing to improve on it. I'm looking forward to Kingdom. And I think this is hopefully this is something that brings in more fans of Transformers. Turns casual fans into hardcore fans maybe, and then makes people excited to delve into Transformers backstory and lore and stuff. I mean, I know for me it's not something that's too surprising, but I think for someone who hasn't paid attention for 30 years, this is a nice way to bring them back in. So, Ant, maybe I'll go back to you. What did you in terms of a high point and low point for the show?
Okay, so I'm gonna start at the low point because I want to piggyback off of something you said, and it's the voice acting, and it's the lack of transforming, and I don't mind when they cheat it, and you hear the transforming sound off screen, and then see the new alternate form. That doesn't bother me. I mean, it's nice when you can see the whole thing happen. But there is one scene and in the second episode where it is really obvious that the budget constraints and lack of being able to transform all the characters really shines. And it's almost like it was so bad they shouldn't have put it in. I think that is the lowest point of the that and as I said before, Jake Fauci's acting. I mean, there were a couple times where I walked by, I was like, do we have our Hayden Christensen? Do we have Transformers version of Hayden Christensen?
Oh wow!
Because I was just thinking, I was like, everybody that's ever played Optimus prior or alternate to him, I would have preferred in this role. And
how he reacts to Kingdom where there might be sand.
Or whether or not he has the high ground. As far as high points go, there are 2 episodes in the middle of the season. I won't say which ones, but they're not the first, not the last. That are far and away the 2 best episodes of the entire series, counting Siege. And I think the other thing, and this is from the trailer, the Galvatron's in the trailer, if you haven't seen the trailer. And I think the introduction of Galvatron, the episode he's in, how he gets to where he is and why, and all of that explanation, it was kind of like a masterstroke for this whole series. And I think that whole situation was the most impressive part of all of Earthrise for me.
Cool. Before I move on to Jeremy and Daryl, I do want to add one more thing, just because, and I don't want to end on a downer note, but I did have one additional low point for me, and I think we should end on a positive note. So I'll shove this in right here. I did feel like there were a couple of situations where there was the dramatic situation was created by basically unnecessary hesitation. Like there are a couple of situations where characters do things and then just wait for the other character to react. When these guys are mortal enemies, you would expect them to immediately take advantage and, attack, press their advantage, and, basically kill the other guy rather than, wait for a line of dialogue or a comeback. And that just, it felt a little bit artificial and just a couple of scenes there. And when we get to the spoiler review, we can talk more in detail about that. But towards the end of the series, is like, okay, if you didn't really need to hesitate there, you could have taken them out. So, but that's my only additional nitpick. So I'll throw it back to you, Jeremy, for your high point and low point.
All right. I think one of my high points was the arcs that Optimus and Megatron go on throughout the series, and how they got from who they used to be to who they are, and the decisions that they've made, I found really parallel each other. And I really like that. And it just shows that they both made bad decisions, and they both realize they made bad decisions, and how they deal with that fact are just complete opposite. And I like that depth of storytelling. I thought that was a high point. Alita 1's whole arc I really enjoyed, and showed that she's probably a more competent leader than both Optimus and Megatron. But just like how she just keeps fighting in the midst of everything going on. I enjoyed that. Low points. I have to agree with like the transformation. I mentioned this with Siege too. The amount of scenes where like people are walking versus transforming to a vehicle mode, that's a little frustrating. And I would have been okay with it if there was some excuse given, like, we're low on energy on, we can't waste it transforming or something like that. But none was given. I mean, we did get one good, Autobots transform and roll out scene, but outside of that, transformations were. Did we? Okay, well, we got a scene with it.
He said transform and roll out, and everyone hopped on his back like in Mad Max.
Okay, that was the scene I was trying not to spoil.
Oh, well, sorry. It's Transformers. It's going to happen. But okay, but I don't know. It just, I understand the budget constraints. I just wish that there was at least more of an explanation, or there was more of just the sound effect and you see them in the other form. Outside of that, I don't know. I had a good time with the series. I wasn't, we've been really hard on things like the recent comic run and stuff, and for good reason. But with this, it was just 6 episodes, so it's hard to really kind of take anything like too personally. And just with some of the lore that they're bringing up and the little Easter eggs and stuff, I feel like there's a care put into this that lets me forgive a lot of things I don't like, because I can see where they're going. Mm-hmm. And I like that with the trailer that was put out, people think it's going to go in a whole different direction than it went. Like I watched a bunch of reactions and predictions on YouTube, and every one of them is wrong. They're thinking it's going to go in a completely different direction. And I love that. I hate it when trailers give away everything. So,
yep. All right, Daryl. High point and low point.
Well, I hope you've got another high point, because I'm purposely going to end on a low point for you. No, I'm kidding. I'll end on a high point. I don't want to. Everyone here has a problem with the voice acting and the transformation stuff. We've talked about it before. It was the problem with Siege. It's still an issue, and we know why. Budgets and politics and business.
Well, and I think FJ was saying they're also having to use a lot of the new models and stuff for Kingdom because you got all of the organic, characters that are going to be introduced.
So we know the answers to these questions, so we're not really going to harp on them too much. But those are really my downer points for the show. Is the same stuff that I was really not super stoked about with Siege. My high points, I really was happy with the character arc that Megatron took. He struggles at the beginning of this series with some choices that need to be made, and
like cleaning his desk.
Yeah. He cleans that desk hard. It's a really interesting character arc, and you really don't see Megatron have to make those decisions, because when any other media we ever meet up with Megatron, he's well past this point, right? These struggles that he's had to face they're behind him. He's dealt with them, right? He's already the tyrant and the leader that he's become. Mm-hmm. So we're at the forefront of Megatron becoming the tyrant now, and you're seeing that it wasn't easy. And you also see that, like Charles said, that Optimus was not made a John Wayne type leader, right? He's also struggling. He's making mistakes, and he struggles as well during the I would say the middle of the series. He's struggling with a decision that he made, and he's really having a problem with it, right? I would attribute it to Hot Rod in the third season of G1. He just can't get past this mistake.
Yeah, he just became the leader and made a mistake.
He's just like, I can't do it. I can't be the leader that they need. But it's a good. I really like the character arcs that they did, so I'm pretty happy with it, and the stuff that the other guys talked about too, with the characters that they threw in there, the episode that I talked about before, I loved it. That episode, when that episode ended, I slapped my wife's ass. It was awesome.
I'm sure she loved that.
You had to have seen the show I just watched.
All right. Well, I think that's our thoughts on Transformers War for Cybertron Earthrise. I think there are. If you had issues with Siege, those same issues are here in Earthrise, but I generally think it's an improvement over Siege. If you liked Siege, you'll definitely like Earthrise. If you weren't so hot on Siege, I would say still give Earthrise a chance. I think it still gives an improvement, even if it doesn't deal with the complaints about voice acting. I think it really is still is a great story and an action-packed show, and it's enjoyable. If you're a Transformers fan, it's enjoyable.
I think plot-wise, Siege had a lot of setting up to do that pays off here, where they don't have to redo a bunch of that stuff. So it just can get right into the action.
Yeah, I think if you didn't like Siege, you got to power through the first episode and a half before this really picks up, because you start out kind of just wrapping up loose ends from the previous season, and then once you can get past that, the show really does take off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. I liked Siege, so I can't. For the people who didn't like it, I can't argue with you. But I actually liked the first episode dealing with those loose ends. I enjoyed those, and I liked where they took that, especially with Alita 1. But
I think it's more pacing. I've watched the first 2 episodes twice now. I've watched the full series only once. Those first 2 episodes are just a little slower than the rest of the series. I think it's more. It's not so much content as much as it is just pacing.
Okay, fair enough.
To be fair, I think Charles would like a show that was just a scrolling prose story.
Yes, Daryl.
Just scroll for 2 hours.
Because I like lore, I hate action. That's right, Daryl.
Hey, it's a whole new thing for you. It's just a digital book. You can pause it where you want.
You can do like what I did this morning or this afternoon, and I was busy, so I was listening to it with the audio descriptions. And in the spoiler review, I'll get into some interesting things that they had in there, but it's kind of like an audiobook where they're describing what's on the scene. Especially the episode Daryl likes is one of the ones I listen to.
Interesting. All right. Well, Netflix War for Cybertron Earthrise comes out December 30th. So that's Wednesday. Look for our interview with FJ DeSanto and Matt Murray on Friday, January 1st. So New Year's Day, you'll get a special interview treat that will be our Transmissions alt mode for this week. This special interview with the showrunners of War for Cybertron. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you guys enjoy Earthrise in a couple of days. Ant, why don't you tell everyone where they can find your stuff online?
Sure. So if you're listening to Transmissions, you could probably find my podcast on the same platforms, and that is Transformers University. You can catch me on Twitter at TFU_info or on YouTube at youtube.com/TFU.info. And of course, on the web at www.tfu.info, the world's longest running transforming toy archive.
Awesome. And for us, hopefully, if you're watching us, you know who we are. This is a Transmissions podcast. You can find all our stuff at our website, transmissionspodcast.com, and subscribe there. You can also leave us feedback. If you have, after you watch Earthrise, you want to tell us what you thought of the show and give your opinion, give us some feedback at transmissionspodcast.com/feedback. You can leave us voicemails. You can send us emails. You can hit us up on social media, and you can even leave comments in the YouTube video right below here. And we might get to them in a future episode, although probably after the new year, we might might be on break a little bit.
When we do the spoiler reviews, we'll probably have some of the feedback we get.
Yeah. And if you like us enough that you'd like to subscribe to, like to become a supporter of Transmissions, become a Transmissions donatron, you can do that at transmissionspodcast.com/support. And that really helps out the show, helps keep this in business, keep us doing special things like this. So thanks everyone for watching, listening, and hope you guys enjoy Earthrise, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Later.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of Transmissions. But just because this episode is over doesn't mean the Transformers fun has to stop. Join us and other Transformers fans on our Discord chat server by visiting transmissionspodcast.com/discord. If you would like to learn more about how you could support the Transmissions podcast, just visit transmissionspodcast.com/support. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.